What is going on, y'all? It is the Caveman. I'm here with Football with Oz, Austin, for episode 9. I think it's 9 of Against the Blitz. And we are going to get into a couple of fun topics today. We're going to talk about some of the trade rumors that have been going on as of the last couple of days, as well as, of course, the big game on Sunday, and give you some general predictions, a score outcome, and maybe even some overly specific things that we can track throughout the game that I think will be fun to put on record. But how you doing tonight? I'm excited to have this conversation.
I'm doing great. I've been waiting for anything to happen off-season wise, even though the off-season hasn't started yet. We are met with, so far, 2 interesting trade ideas, with Myles Garrett requesting a trade himself and Cooper Kupp being requested a trade by his own team. So the one I'm most curious in is the Myles Garrett one. I'm not sure where you rate him, but I think he has a case to be the best defensive player in the world today. So trading for him is kind of crazy at this point in his career. So curious to see what kind of, first of all, what team I think that you can see him going to, and for what.
Yeah, you are very correct in saying he is the best defensive player in the world. I feel like that shouldn't even be a debate at this stage. Like, not only is he playing the most important position on defense, but he's also at this stage also the very best at it, hands down. Like TJ Watt, his year wasn't fantastic. He's not up to par anymore. Micah Parsons, I think, might be able to have an argument, but still not quite there. Other than that, I think the list is just pretty much Myles Garrett, and then there's just kind of a fat gap, and then there's like 2, 3, 4, 5, etc.
Yeah. And he's what, 30 now?
29, I think. Still, he might be 30 by the time.
It might be 30 when the time that he plays. Yeah. So you have a guy who's 30, but like he might be in his prime. From like watching him at least 2 times a year against my own team, like he is still plenty within his athletic prime and skill prime. So I'm not too worried about age being a thing here. I still think he has plenty of good football ahead of him. And being the best defensive player in the league at around 30 years old, I'd say he still has at least a contract or 2 left of being really, really, really good.
Absolutely. And I was, when I was making my trade packages, destinations, and overall predictions, I saw Adam Schefter tweet out that Khalil Mack was probably the last player of this caliber at this position. Not quite, I feel like, but he was very good at that time when he was traded from Oakland to Chicago. He was 27, and he fielded a pretty decent haul. Specifically, the Bears gave up 2 first-round picks and a 3rd and a 6th for Khalil, and they also got a 2nd and a conditional 5th in return. But nonetheless, fielding 2 seconds and a 3rd is pretty substantial. And before I talk about the actual package that we might be predicting, do you think that Garrett is worth that much considering the age difference?
Not quite that much. I think he's still worth, and I won't get too much into it, I think he's still worth at least a first, and then plus some change, plus a few pieces, maybe even plus another one. Might get into that. But I don't know if that amount of capital is worth it. That's a pretty big risk, taking on somebody with his age, regardless of how elite he is. I do think he's better than Khalil Mack ever was. But I think the oldest person to ever get a first-round pick for him was probably Revis, kind of recently. I don't even know if he was a first-round pick. Like, he was the last older veteran to get high-end capital for him in a trade. So this will be interesting to see kind of where the league is on him in like a risk analysis. Are we willing to give up a first or even another first for a 30-year-old player? I would be. So I'm curious to see what team, first of all, you think he might fit on. And then we can kind of dive into what they would give up for him.
Okay, yeah. So I had a couple teams. Now, when it comes to a player of this caliber, you can probably list 12 teams that could, 12 at least teams that could use, not only use the services, but also afford him. So the list could be lengthy. I tried to keep it slim, and I even included a couple teams that are very hot in the conversation that I don't think will end up being suitors. So I'll touch on that. But My top two teams are the Green Bay Packers, for one. I'll start with them. They're a team that they had an invisible pass rush this past year. As good as their defense was, as great as their secondary was, they struggled to get after the quarterback. That was one of the things that the change from Jeff Hafley, from Joe Barry, not that their pass rush was great under Joe Barry, but out of everything that improved, the pass rush seemed to almost decline. That might be a strong statement, but it wasn't good nonetheless. They also, I think the Packers fired their defensive line coach too, so they're looking to improve in this capacity for sure. So I have the Packers there. I think they have a good chunk of cap. They have all of their picks from this upcoming draft class. And just generally speaking, I think the Packers being a contending team in the conference makes sense.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, they haven't had a all-star pass rusher since Clay Matthews?
Yeah, Clay.
And even then, he wasn't even as productive as like our memory probably thinks he was. So, yeah, I would say I don't know what kind of draft capital they have. I didn't really look into them much as a team, but I like that a lot. Assuming you give them a first and some other change, they're kind of one of those teams that's like a few pieces away from really being a contender.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that fit a lot. They're not one that I thought of, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I tried to say semi-unconventional because there are some teams that are just getting shoved on our throat when it comes to this particular topic. My package, though, I'll quickly get into that for the Packers. So I do have a first being included. I have a 2025 first, 2025 second, and a 2026 second, as well as I actually almost feel like this is a little rich now that I think about it over again.
I mean, but like
I also added Kingsley Enagbare as well. So I added
he's a toss-in, yeah. But like that's just kind of like interesting to see what someone would be so willing to give up for a 30-year-old that is also probably the best in the world at what he does.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of, to me, has to be a team that feels like they're pretty close to being able to do it, because you're not expecting to have Myles Garrett for the next 8 to 12 years. Like this might be only like a 3-year thing on your horizon. And a team like the Packers is a team that could assemble enough in the next 3 years to win a Super Bowl or to get close if they can really double down and get more players like this. So I like that one a lot. It's a little rich for the return, but like it's close. It's close though, you know, because like what would you be willing to give up to get the best player on defense in the world? Like I'd give up a ton. So that's fair. It's totally fair.
That's kind of what I think that's what I was having a debate with in my own head. Like from a franchise's perspective, which is what I was reading this from right now, I'm like, oh shit, maybe this is a little rich. But I think as I was creating it, I'm like, if I were Green Bay or anyone in this case that is looking to potentially compete within the next couple of years for the trophy, like I'm doing it. Like to me as a fan on the outside, I might not be the one sitting in the chair on the throne, but there are risks that sometimes you need to take. And I think out of anybody in football over the last 10 years, Myles Garrett is on a relatively short list that at the age of 30, you'd be willing to give this much up for.
Yeah. A team similarly, but one that's been a little bit more active in like the trade talks is the Commanders, that I'm actually a pretty big fan of. Because when you look at someone like Myles Garrett, where you're going to have to eat some salary probably, you look at a team that has a quarterback on a rookie contract, so you're not super worried about anything contract related yet. A team that literally had no pass rush in the playoffs. Like there was nothing. It was all offense and linebackers. Yeah, it was just like they were just praying to get a stop. And I think that when you have a team that's third in cap space also for 2025, as well as having a rookie quarterback, like they have a lot of room. They have a lot of room to go. I would give up for them this first round pick, which is 29th overall, a first round pick next season, and then maybe a player, like you said, like a Kingsley Enagbare, like a I don't know what William Bradley King. I don't know if they still have him, but yeah, throw in like some random backup edge rusher, 2 firsts for the best defensive player in the world. That's about as far as I'd go if I'm Washington.
Yeah, Washington is one of those teams that is the talk of the town as a landing destination, and it's one of those things that it makes too much sense. Where it's almost like fishy in a way. Like
it's like an NFC team that will have nothing to do with the Browns.
Mm-hmm.
Like it would be perfect for them to trade him to a team that's like close to winning a Super Bowl. I mean, they were a game away, so having another elite player would do well for that. They don't have a lot of holes, so they can kind of get rid of some draft picks. Not that important to them as of right now. So they're one of the ones that does make sense. Yeah. You said you had 2 teams. Who was your other team?
So my other team for Myles, and like I said, I tried to keep this semi-unconventional. So I left the Commanders out of my top 2, even though, gun to my head, I'm probably listing the Commanders as one of these teams. But my final prediction, my actual final prediction for Myles Garrett is going to be the Falcons. And damn, sorry. I think we briefly talked about them last episode or 2 episodes ago, but they another team with 0 pass rush at all. I was dumbfounded that they didn't choose an edge rusher at 8th overall in last year's draft. I was dumbfounded that at the trade deadline, being ahead in their division by 2 games, looking like a potential contender in their division, and they didn't go and trade for an edge rusher then. Like, it's got to give at some point. This is a team that their cap situation isn't as good as a team like the Commanders, for example. No. Not that really any team's is as good as Washington's, but you can capitalize on a guy like this when you have a rookie quarterback, which is the big key point in terms of money. Like, being able to capitalize while your young quarterback is being paid pennies at the NFL level is a pretty big thing nowadays. So that was really the 2 selling points. And the other thing was, like, the Falcons, I feel like, are one of the few teams in the league that can kind of be like, fuck them picks. Like, what other glaring holes do they have where their draft capital is needed as much? Like, I feel like they almost check every box.
I would be willing to bet I do 3 mock drafts a day. Like, actually, and I have not ever not given an edge rusher to the Falcons. Mm-hmm. They get an edge rusher every time in every mock draft I do, because it's like the one thing that is so glaringly needed on that team as a first rounder. So why not just give up your first rounder that you were going to spend on probably Mykel Williams or Jalen Walker for Myles Garrett, and then throw in some other pieces that you probably weren't going to use anyways. So please, by all means, like, the Falcons were my favorite team that I was waiting to use. So thanks for stealing it. But
sorry.
Since we both have the same one, I'm curious to know what return you have from the Falcons.
Yeah. Well, I think now that I think back also when making my trade packages is I have to think there is going to be a bidding war. And I think maybe where I might be going wrong or maybe going right with my packages is, like, these teams know that they're going to have to, if they want to land him, they're going to have the best offer. And if they overshoot by a tad, then so be it. You're going to have to be okay with that. And I have the Falcons throwing in this year's first rounder, next year's first rounder, and then a 4th rounder next year as well. Like, Atlanta was a team that just paid $40 million for a quarterback that was on one leg. So however much they paid Kirk. So they're clearly in the business of trying to become one of the top teams in football right now. And like I said, I don't think that draft capital is going to do them nearly as much good as it would if they just shipped it off for Myles Garrett. So
yeah. Mine was fairly similar. So I had 15th overall pick in this draft, next year's 2nd, and Kirk Cousins himself. Because the Browns need a bridge. I feel like if they're wanting to go best player available at 3, they have 3, right? No, they have 2. Their 2nd overall pick.
Yes.
So they can go BPA there, right? They're 2.
I'm double checking. They are.
I think Giants are 3.
Oh, that's the NHL, you idiot. Yeah, they're 2.
So they can go BPA at 2, which will be Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, whoever they want to be like a franchise player.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kirk Cousins as a bridge, because I don't think that their quarterback of the future is in this draft. I really don't. And then 15, that's when you can try and go for another edge rusher. Mm-hmm. You'll still get like a premium, like a Mike Green, one of these quality guys. So you get best player available, another mid first round pick, second next year, and a good bridge quarterback. It kind of makes sense to me. It kind of really helps both teams for what they've been needing. So I really would love the marriage of Atlanta and Myles Garrett, especially considering Atlanta seems to be in the talks of every single possible trade candidate for the last 10 years. Like they're always almost going to do it. They never do it.
Yeah, there's like this weird part of me that wants them to succeed. Like I don't care about Atlanta at all.
No,
but I've been wanting them to make moves that make sense for them for so long, and they just I feel like they never do it. And I'm like, what the like, please, just once, just make the sensible decision. And if this opportunity really presents itself, please pull the trigger.
I wanted them to get Lamar. They were like, they were so close to pulling the trigger, it felt like. And then they just didn't. Every team backed out. The Panthers didn't. They didn't. Everyone backed out. So this time around, can we please take this AFC North player that's been terrorizing me since I first started watching football? You didn't take Lamar. Can you take Myles Garrett? For the love of God. That fit is so perfect. Mm-hmm. There's no reason they couldn't do it.
I agree, 100%.
Ridiculous.
And I'll try to keep it brief so we can keep the train choo-chooing down the tracks. But I did want to touch on the couple teams that I said won't end up being the landing spots. And for the sake of being different, I did put Washington on there. And like I said, it just feels like it makes too much sense. And I think the Cinderella run, this might be a hot take, but I feel like the Cinderella run that the Commanders just went on makes it seem like they're a lot closer as a whole team to being that true winner than they really are. Like,
from winning the Super Bowl, yeah, I would agree. I think like it depends on if your strategy is just to get back there again and then just hope that you can win it this time, or if you want to literally build the best roster in football. They don't have that. Like, they're not the Eagles. They're not like A pluses from top to bottom. Like they're an A at quarterback, and he's just trying his freaking best. So especially when like a lot of their best guys like Bobby Wagner are kind of old. Mm-hmm. Like they need to revamp a lot of those positions, in my opinion. So yeah, it's unlikely, but it would be really fun.
Oh yeah, it would be a blast. I would love to see Jaden Daniels and then have Myles Garrett on the other side of the ball. Yeah. But yeah, I do think like key contributors this year, they were older, like you mentioned. Bobby Wagner, Zach Ertz was a big target for them. Like there are just more holes, more opportunity for that draft capital to help them across the board than a team like Atlanta, for example. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to get your thoughts on the other two teams that I feel like I've been hearing in this conversation a lot, and that's Chicago and Detroit, two AFC North, NFC North.
I have Chicago coming up later as someone else who could be shopping for a different big-named edge rusher, and I do like them. I mean, they just put a second-round pick for Montez Sweat, who helped their defense tremendously. And you said the Lions was another team I actually wrote down as someone that would be fun, but I don't see it happening. They do need another edge rusher. I don't think Zadarius Smith's going to cut it at 32 years old. I think he is. Like,
I know
Myles. I know Myles is 30, but like he's so much better. So obviously having Aiden Hutchinson and Myles Garrett would be like a dream. But with this whole like shuffling of coordinators, I don't really know what their team's going to look like. I don't know how bad these holes are really going to be when two of the top coordinators in the NFL leave. So they're a team I kind of want to just relax from any major moves yet. Keep moving forward with what Brad Holmes has been doing and just hope for the best.
Fair enough. I'll let you keep the rest of your thoughts for the next couple players we come across. So Cooper Kupp was the other big name as highlighted earlier. And this is where I will inject my Washington Commanders opinion further. So the Commanders are my top destination. I have two, but the Commanders are my top and my final. This is a receiver is by far their top priority, in my opinion. They need a second guy, specifically a slot receiver. I think Olamide Zaccheaus was their slot receiver this year. I don't know if Diami Brown played out of the slot too much, but I know Terry did.
It was Zaccheaus.
It was Zaccheaus. So
yeah,
they could use some help there. I think Cooper Kupp, although he wants to compete, of course, but I feel like he's the kind of guy that would love to be somewhere and be a part of a process, like a building process that Washington just went through this year. And he a big locker room presence, somebody that can help Jaden be that, Bobby Wagner type of guy for that locker room.
Yeah, for the offense, yeah.
He'd be huge. I think he'd be huge for that team, and he wouldn't cost much. I have a trade package. Yeah. I was just gonna say a trade package of a fourth round pick alone, or a fifth and a sixth.
Yeah, that's actually pretty similar to all the ones I have. They felt criminal putting like such like a acquirable package for him, but like that's what he is at this point. Sadly, even aside from production, when you watch him, you're like, oh, Cooper, he used to catch those or used to get open on those. That's so sad. So the Washington was one of those teams I did look at, but I guess because I put them for Myles Garrett, I wasn't going to talk about them twice. But they're a team that's definitely worth recognition as a team that I think that they only have 2 receivers on the roster next season. Like I think they're losing a bunch to free agency. I think they have 3. They'll have 3 receivers for next season. I think Zaccheaus is gone. I think it's just McCaffrey, Terry, and Brown maybe. So yeah, they have to reload. I don't want Luke McCaffrey out here getting starting reps. So you can get the better white guy in there, and I like that. Mine, I feel pretty good about the Texans. I really like the Texans with Stephon Diggs probably leaving. He kind of likes to do this. He's probably leaving. And Nick Caley just got signed to be the new offensive coordinator for Houston, who was the passing game coordinator for the Rams previously. So I think a team that will likely need that more veteran presence when they have Nico Collins. They don't really have great tight end play. Dalton Schultz has kind of disappeared since he left Dallas. So that like over the middle kind of play that Cooper Kupp brings is something they've kind of been lacking. And Stroud has been kind of having to hit deep balls over and over and over again. And it's kind of been getting figured out. So I think you bring in the new OC that loves Cooper Kupp, and you have like that need for that third receiver, the second receiver. I think it fits. I had a package of Kupp and a 6th for a 4th round pick.
Okay. Yeah, the Texans were certainly on my radar as well. I think the reason why I steered clear is because I guess in my mind, Tank Dell and Nico will be enough. I think this year specifically, Tank's role was suppressed, and I think a lot of that was because of Diggs' implementation and just the lack of targets to go around. And then when he got the opportunity, I mean, the dude was very good, in my opinion. So I'm not sure if they're going to want to stuff him down the depth chart for another aging guy. But we also don't know how healthy Tank Dell is going to be next year. The guy has snapped his leg twice now.
He's someone that's hard because he's a passing tell. Like, if he is inside in line, like, you're passing because he is the worst blocker I've ever seen. And Cooper Kupp is one of my favorite blocking receivers ever. He's so good at it. So, like, I love Tank Dell, but I don't think I'm quite as high on Tank Dell as the universe seems to be. I love him as, like, a high-end wide receiver 3. Like, he's still really good. But I just love the idea of having just 3-star receivers for pretty cheap. Like, what was Tank Dell, a 3rd or 4th round pick? Like, he was pretty cheap. Nico Collins was pretty cheap when they got him. A 4th for Cooper Kupp's no problem. I love that. But I love Washington. I love Houston. They've kind of been popular names. Do you have anybody that's a little less popular?
I do. I actually have 3 teams. I forgot about the third one, but the second one, and I had predicted this at the deadline too, and it didn't happen, of course. But I was big on it, and it's the Cowboys.
Fair.
I don't know if Jerry's another guy in the business of not making sensible decisions. So
that's the problem.
Yeah, it's the problem. But I mean, this team is in desperate need of a wide receiver too, somebody that presents some sort of threat outside of CeeDee Lamb. Like it's bad out there. I mean, you bring in a guy like Cooper Kupp for cheap. You let CeeDee Lamb go outside a little bit more. I mean, that dude lived in the slot, and because he had to live in the slot because that was the only guy capable of getting the ball on a consistent basis and actually doing something with it. So I think that would give them a lot more flexibility on offense. And you make a fair point to the whole run blocking thing that I didn't even consider when talking about Houston. Like, I think Dallas is going to have to get back to being an effective team on the ground, whether they bring in a guy like Cooper Kupp or not. And a guy like Cooper Kupp would bring more of a physical presence from what is a small, skinny, and thin wide receiver core in Dallas. Like, they have CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Jalen Tolbert, Kevontae Turpin. Like, these are not guys that are getting downfield and holding a block. Like, they're just not. So,
I mean, it's going to be important too when they bring Genty in. 12th overall. I mean, that's going to happen. Genty, Cooper Kupp, CeeDee Lamb, all for a pretty reasonable price. That would be insane.
Yeah.
That would be ridiculous.
That would be fun. Like, I'm not a Cowboys hater like a lot of people. Like, I like Dak.
I don't live near Texas, so I don't ever encounter the Cowboys fans, really. They've kind of been depressed the last few years, so I haven't really had to hear anything out of them. But I like Dak. He's the most overhated player in all of the sports. So, yeah. You know what? I'm wishing Cooper Kupp upon you guys. I'm tired of seeing whatever you've been running out the slot the last. I miss Michael Gallup and his goal line fades. I want to see some. I want to see some more action in the red zone.
Holy fuck, Michael Gallup!
I'm ready.
I forgot. Michael Gallup pre-ACL injury had like the craziest vertical ever.
Dude,
I remember watching him. I can't remember who it was against, what time of the game it was. All I remember is him in the almost along the back line of the end zone, and he had rocket boots on his shoes, and he got up and cleared the DB and caught it with ease. I'm like, holy fuck, Michael Gallup.
Yeah, that was when Dak Prescott was like respected.
Yes,
and then he had to run QB draw in the playoffs, and then everyone thought he was bottom 5. No, he's still good. He made a bad play. All right, leave him alone. Give him someone like Michael Gallup again. He'll be putting up MVP numbers.
Just like last year, but people forget about that too.
Yeah, they do. They choose to.
And the last team I wanted to mention real quick that I wanted to get your thoughts on is Jacksonville. Do you think they'll be in the business of Cooper Kupp?
So what do they got? They got weapon-wise, Evan Ingram, old, BTJ, vertical, Christian Kirk. I don't know what he is anymore. Yeah, and then they're kind of missing. I mean, Parker Washington. I don't know what he's going to be either. So yeah, they've kind of needed anything across the middle. Evan Ingram's been hit or miss, injured. I'd love them to have that like safety blanket kind of Godwin receiver for Liam Cohen. Whatever they were doing with Godwin, whatever Liam Cohen was doing with Godwin was working. It was really, really working. And I don't see a situation why Cooper Kupp can't at least be a little bit of what that was. So, yeah. I mean, they have the capital. They have a bunch of first-round picks. Not a bunch of first-round picks, but they have a high-end first-round pick to kind of get whoever they want. They can fill all the holes they want. And then just with your 4th-round pick, get Cooper Kupp. I love that.
Yep, that was my exact line of thinking. You have Baker, Evans, and Godwin doing what they did for the first 9 weeks. I don't see why BTJ, Kupp, and and Trevor couldn't, have some kind of, production similar. I mean, like you said, Godwin was a monster out of the slot.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I think Cohen could be the perfect guy to get whatever is left out of Kupp at this point in his career. being a primary target for Trevor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't have them. I wish I did, though. That's kind of cool. The one team I did, because I feel like they're going to be working with Kupp to get him, one, like in a location that he will enjoy. I think they'll want him in the AFC because I don't think they'll want to have to compete against him or be a rival with him. And a good young team that'll fit his scheme. I picked the Broncos. I think he gets to stay west. He doesn't have to move too far. Gets to go to the AFC. He doesn't have to be the number one, but he will get really good targets.
Mm-hmm.
I love Devon Vele, but no more. No more. That's not a thing that you can keep going forward. He can rotate in, but they need a new slot, especially one that can block for how much a Sean Payton team wants to run. They're still trying to find their running identity. It didn't seem like they ever had a starting running back. I couldn't tell you who it was supposed to be. I love him there as someone who can play in structure with Bo Nix, because when he started playing out of structure, it got kind of bad. So someone that can kind of keep him in would be great. And for them, I just had a 5th round pick.
Yeah,
literally, that's all I think he's worth at this point. But yeah, it's kind of sad to say.
No, I like that though. The Broncos were another team I looked at, and I'm like, yeah, this probably makes sense. I think Bo Nix to Cooper Kupp would probably be like PPR game breaking, like for fantasy football. Like you would go back to being like a high 2nd round pick if you went to Denver.
One thing I will say I'm kind of worried about with Cooper Kupp is that I think a lot of it was the Stafford to Kupp connection.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like they had whatever Mahomes and Kelsey have, whatever like a lot of good quarterbacks to receivers have, where it's only a thing that they have. And I don't think that someone like Kupp necessarily, or someone like Bo Nix necessarily, would be getting what we think that we might be getting out of Cooper Kupp. Like, I think it'll be very watered down compared to what we're used to. Especially at I think he'll be 32 by the time the season starts, and hasn't played a healthy season in 4 years. So kind of worried about it. But with a 5th round pick, I'm willing to take a flyer. Like, very, very willing.
Totally. I think watered down is the perfect way to describe the season he'll probably have. Like, watered down Cooper Kupp is what you're getting. And
yes,
for a team like the Broncos, like you mentioned, that's something that they can use to help Bo Nix for a season, but that's all they need him for. Like, I think if you're looking to bring him on to be like a stepping stone to being a contender, no, right.
It should be a team that doesn't really have a great tight end presence. He kind of acts like that almost as a blocker and as an underneath guy, but you can't be expecting him to win vertically. He doesn't stretch your field. At this point in his career, he doesn't have a crazy open route tree. We kind of know where he's going. It's left or it's right. You know, he's not burning you anymore. So, yeah, I think every team we've covered kind of has the same build to a degree. Like, limited tight ends, need a slot, young quarterback that needs some help. There were other teams that I heard a lot about, and I'm curious, for the same as the Myles Garrett thing, have you heard any buzz for a team that you disagree with, that like you think would be a bad fit?
3 of them, actually.
I have one main one.
If you were curious,
I have one big one. Yeah,
I'd be willing to bet one of the 3 is the one you're talking about. Okay. I'll just list them all. I have the Lions, the Chargers, and the Steelers as the big 3.
Yeah.
The Lions and the Chargers, it's kind of the same reasoning. Like, the only thing you'd be doing by adding a Cooper Kupp to either of those teams is taking off a better version of Cooper Kupp off the field. For what? I mean, Labakaki is better at this stage, I think.
Yes.
Should be undisputable. So you'd be limiting his opportunities, taking him out of the role he just thrived in for a guy that's old and probably not going to produce nearly as much. And then in Detroit, you have that tight end presence in Laporta. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who plays primarily out of the slot. It's like all you're doing is crowding the room and taking away opportunities for guys that are going to be more productive with them. So they're like at the top of the food chain for this, and it makes absolutely no fucking sense to me at all.
No. Those 2 teams Like that's all they have going is their slot presence. Like they need to stretch, they need vertical, but they have the one thing that Cooper Kupp does well. So it's like easy to say like, oh, they need a receiver. Here's a receiver, but it's the type of receiver that they are. That is the exact same receiver he is. The Steelers were the one that I had in mind as like, I think they do need him. They need a slot, but I don't think he's doing anything if Justin Fields is their quarterback. I think that he is the worst quarterback you could ever put with Cooper Kupp. Like stylistically.
That motherfucker trying to target the middle of the field is
God.
Asking a baby to color in between the lines in a coloring book. Like it's just not something he's good with. His decision making is not fast enough. He's not decisive.
That's what it is. Yes, the decisiveness.
Yeah.
It's like he's like pitching a baseball rather than throwing a football. There is no anticipation. He like waits for you to get open rather than anticipating you being open. And that's the only way you can get the ball to a Cooper Kupp that would probably run a 4.75 today. Like it has to be someone that can throw on time, like a Stroud, like a Jaden Daniels, like we've talked about, even like a Bo Nix, but it's not Justin Fields. So I'm tired of them just putting him in just because they need a slot receiver. They need to draft one and develop him with the quarterback. Don't waste Cooper Kupp's last few years, please.
Yeah, please is right. Like,
like,
yeah, sure, they need a slot, but the Steelers, to me, like this would be such a Steelers kind of thing to pursue. Let's make that clear. Like this feels very much Steelers coded.
Well, I don't know. He seems too good of a guy.
He might be. He might be too culturally like grounded. Like
I have heard Justin Tucker might be for sale. That's their guy. They would love him. It's right up their alley.
For sale, yeah. That guy might be available for like curbside garbage cleanup at this stage.
Oh my god!
That guy he might be on the side of the street with the coin cup very soon. But yeah, I mean, Kupp would be just a Band-Aid for the Steelers, just a guy to bring in so they could say they don't need a receiver this year. Like, and the last thing this team needs is more fucking Band-Aids. They've been Band-Aiding their issues year after year. They need a solution. They need a long-term guy, either a heavy hitter or a young talent that they draft and they're very high on. Just something that provides a future. And
you can get guys like Emeka Egbuka or Matthew Golden or somebody that can live in the slot but develop with you for the next, contract of his career, not someone that's going to be 32 in a borderline rebuild, borderline not kind of team. They have too many holes.
Yeah.
Like they have too many. They don't have any holes really. They just have too many positions that they're just okay at. Like they're just an okay team. So no, I am vetoing a Cooper Kupp trade there, regardless of what happens. I will show up at Goodell's door. I will not let it happen.
I will, as much as I want the Steelers to rot, I will still advocate for this not to happen for their own sake, even though I want them to fucking suck just once because I cannot.
I mean, they'll suck regardless, but like, yeah.
This over 500 thing is driving me nuts. Like, it's going to be the death of me if he keeps this shit up.
I love it. I hope they keep doing it. So, you know what? But I just love Cooper Kupp. I don't want to have to root against him.
Yeah, fair point. Well, those are the two guys that have been circling the news headlines as of late. So I know we both have a couple players that are not as big right now, I will say, at the top of news headlines, but we want to talk about them anyway. So who is your first player?
Yeah, I'll go brief, and I will just give my quick reasoning of what I think would happen. I think Trey Hendrickson will go. And I have two teams for him, actually. The Lions and the Bears. The Bears for the team I had him going to. He's 30. He's due for a contract extension next year. I would probably, it feels like almost rather have T. Higgins and Jamar together. I think you can afford him if Trey's contract is out of the picture. So keep the nucleus of the offense going, rebuild the defense with a new D coordinator. I don't think Trey really fits his scheme that much anyways. So it'll be sad, but it might have to happen to get some pretty solid capital for him.
Yeah, Trey was fantastic this year, but obviously it didn't make a fucking difference. So
there's bigger problems on defense than just him. So yeah, rebuild the whole damn thing. Keep the offense afloat.
Absolutely. I remember at the start of this year, Ja'Marr Chase was kind of sluggish, not performance-wise, but production-wise, and people in fantasy were kind of like panicking a little bit. And I kept trying to reiterate, like, the offense, the Bengals offense is good when they're at their best when there are multiple weapons on the field. This is a team that drops back out of shotgun more than anybody. They need more than just Ja'Marr Chase on the field to be threatening. And
yes, they literally don't. They have never been able to run the ball.
No,
like teams just blitz the shit out of him and prepare for a pass. Like you can't have Andre Yoshivas or freaking Trent Irwin as starting wide receivers. Like they have no receiver depth. They have to keep one of the starters. They have to keep both the starters. It doesn't matter who the three is. They've had a new tight end every season. Like they just have to have two good ones is all we need. Doesn't matter what the O-line is. Doesn't matter what the tight end is. Doesn't matter what the slot is. Keep those two. They have a good offense.
Yeah, that is the nucleus is a good word for that. Like the three of them together is what makes that team what it is. And removing any piece of it would shatter it. And even though T. Higgins might not be on the level of Ja'Marr Chase or on the level of Joe Burrow as a quarterback, but he is just as important to that entire operation.
Yeah.
So you take that out, the Bengals are, who knows what they are next year, but I can't imagine, at least offensively, they are anything like they've been ever with the three of them. They probably might be one of the worst versions of themselves if they couldn't find someone to replace. So I think T. Higgins, that trade, I feel like the trade rumors have died down with that because I would like to think Duke Tobin is, and everyone over there is like, okay, we realize what we have here. We probably shouldn't ruin it because we don't want to pay the fucking guy.
That's what it feels like because of how vocal Joe Burrow has been about keeping those two and extending those two. So I do think that I'm actually pretty confident now at this point that they can at least get pretty close to a deal with T. But now I'm thinking Hendrickson's gone. And this is how they're going to be able to afford it with getting new picks, getting rid of his contract, drafting his replacement in the first round. That's kind of what it feels like at this point.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And I always had, over these last few weeks, I've had it in the back of my mind that T. Higgins isn't going anywhere. I didn't get as far as to figuring out how they would make that happen, but I think you are now.
They're going to have a lot of roster cuts, like a lot of veterans that have been sucking too much money from them for far too long. Sorry, Sam Hubbard, you're gone too, pal. I think he's cut.
The fullback, no. I remember playing Madden a couple of years ago, and honestly, I didn't even understand that Hubbard was the fullback sometimes. And
he played like two times. Like he did like literally twice, and so he's their fullback in Madden.
Yes, exactly. I remember rolling out in goal line for Cincinnati when I was playing it with them once, and I'm like, is that fucking Sam Hubbard?
Well, he caught a touchdown this year, and then he also ended his season on the same play.
Oh man, I do not remember that really. Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
who was your first guy that you had an inkling might leave?
So this is this is definitely more unrealistic than realistic, I will say, but I am going to go with Anthony Richardson.
Ooh.
I think that motherfucker's got to go. Like, if either side wants to progress, I really think Richardson is going to need to change the scenery, and I think the Colts need to figure it out with somebody else, because the insight that we got following the season that gave us clarity as to how broken the locker room was over that whole situation.
Yeah.
Like, the divide was not manageable. I don't think it was repairable. I don't think Shane Steichen's the guy to repair it.
No, God,
or
no.
Chris Ballard.
Yeah,
Like,
idiot.
they need to just be done. And I think trying to force this marriage is just going to lead to an even uglier divorce and a worse outcome for both of them, specifically Richardson, which would suck because he's so talented. So
yeah,
he's got to go. And
I'm not writing it off yet. Yeah, it's like you said, they don't belong together. So I'm into this actually.
yeah, so they're oil and water. He's got to go. He tapped himself out of the game. You could tap yourself out of the organization too. So send Anthony Richardson over to Vegas. That's where I am shipping Richardson over to. They need a quarterback. Tom Brady's pulling the strings. There's not many exciting options in the draft that I would say are more exciting than what Richardson can be. They, like I said, they have Brady. Pete Carroll's a guy that, proven, seasoned, veteran coach that can get a guy's head on straight like Richardson. But the tipping point for me that made this make sense so much was the hire of Chip Kelly and his career with rushing quarterbacks. Like, he started as the offensive coordinator in Oregon. I did all of this research earlier, and I'm like, this makes too much sense. He was the OC head coach with Jeremiah. What was that fucking guy's name? Jeremiah Masoli. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? But that around like late 2000s, early 2010s. That guy, big rusher, read option. I watched a few of his highlights earlier. Read option. He was always carrying the ball. I think he had like 10 plus touchdowns twice when he was with Chip Kelly. He was obviously with Marcus Mariota for a season. He, even though it went south with the 49ers, he was with Kaepernick for a year. At UCLA, he had DTR, who became a bigger rusher as he was getting older. And then Vic for a little bit. And then even Will Howard, out of everybody, was definitely not one of the biggest rushers, but he even had 7 rushing touchdowns this season. So what better marriage than a guy that has experience with these kind of quarterbacks and a guy that can play right into that strength. So Richardson to Vegas is my pairing here. Yeah,
I love that. I love that a lot. I don't know what he would cost at this point in his career, but I feel like it couldn't be too bad.
Yeah, that was the big difficult question I then had to answer. What would the package for Anthony Richardson look like? And I don't know. I guess it all depends on how badly the Colts are looking to move him. Like, if there's like inner circle talk of like the Colts getting itchy, like, okay, we really need to like figure this out and we don't want him here, then maybe they'll be able to cheap out on him. But I don't think that'll be the case. I think a team will still have to pay a decent amount of capital. And I have the trade package being a 3rd and a 4th.
Fair.
And Vegas gets Richardson and a 6th. So
fair. Yeah.
It's still something. A 3rd and a 4th isn't complete pennies, but
no,
you're not getting much better.
No. I mean, they still have Aiden O'Connell to kind of be like a mediator and still be able to start if AR is still not ready. I mean, Tom Brady just came out saying, don't start rookie quarterbacks. And he said like 1,000 times, like that is his plan. He will not do it. Rookies do not start. And AR is younger than the rookie quarterbacks in today's class. Like, he is literally younger, I'm pretty sure, than Cam Ward and Shador. And I think he's about Shador's age. So mentally, he is a rookie. Let him sit. Let somebody else play. And I think that he could mature into something pretty good, but not with what's happening in Indy. So get him out of there.
Yeah, I am just definitely afraid of what Richardson's career could be if they just keep forcing that envelope over there, because
they suck.
I see no end game for that pair.
I don't know if you've seen like the drop numbers even. Like I'm pretty sure it's like around 17% of his passes are dropped. Like, ones that hit his receivers are dropped. That's insane. Imagine how frustrating that would be if like 17% of the time that you hit your receiver on his body just hit the floor. I would cry. I would beat them up. I would find Adnan Mitchell and I would jump him and I would beat him up.
Oh man, I forgot. AD Mitchell dropped a brutal touchdown in a pretty pivotal game. I don't remember what game it was, but I know they lost, and I do remember AD Mitchell dropping a deep ball that probably would have won them the game, and maybe even would have been a ticket to the playoffs.
Yeah,
because they were one game out.
Yeah,
pretty much. So,
yeah.
Did you have any other players you wanted to touch on?
I had one more.
Oh, that's right.
For the sake of trying to get this thing done in an hour, I think I can do it.
We won't get it done in an hour.
I can do it. I can do it. I'm not even going to explain why. Tyreek Hill, Kansas City Chiefs. He still wears jerseys in his Madden videos. He still uses the Chiefs in Madden. That's all I'm going to say. He wants to go back.
That was also my other player, was Tyreek. And the Chiefs were just screaming at me through my computer screen, like, pick me. And I'm like, no, I'm going to try and be creative. And I kind of was, not really. My final 4 spots, and I ended up narrowing it down to 2, was the Commanders, the Packers, the Lions, and the Vikings.
I had the Commanders down too.
And the 2 that I went with were the Packers and the Lions. And Green Bay, long story short, when your starting running back comes out and says, we need a star wide receiver, sorry, boys, like, you probably need a star wide receiver. So
they do bad.
I just don't think I don't think they would make a move like that. The Packers just
they're drafters.
Yeah, they are.
They're big drafters, yeah.
And they also don't give me confidence in terms of how they'd use him, because I feel like, not that Jaden Reed is really anywhere close to the same receiver, but he's as close to it as I feel like they've got. And he's only on the field like 50% of the time anyway.
So good.
He's underutilized, not utilized enough at all. Where does Tyreek fit into that mold? I don't know. So I just ended up going with the Lions because I ran with the whole, Detroit feeling like they're losing control. And
yeah, go for it.
Like, the after back-to-back catastrophic postseason exits and both coordinators being lost, like, I think Dan Campbell, of all people, feels the gravity of reality. So they might do something desperate.
I just had like the vision in my head of like a play action, double deep crossers, Jameson Williams and Tyreek Hill. Imagine that. How do you cover that? You don't have the safeties that are fast enough to pick and diagnose where they're going. Like, imagine just like having both of them running mesh. You're not keeping up with them. It's not happening. If you're rubbed off your route at all, you're toast. It's a 60-yard gain on mesh.
I literally thought the same thing. I'm like, just imagine like sending these 2 guys over the middle of the field, like,
and Amon-Ra's just sitting there too, like,
yeah, literally.
Or Gibbs and Montgomery in the backfield ready to pound it down your face. Like, if they can afford him, what did I have? I didn't even put anything down for like his capital, because who knows at this point.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I think he has a no trade clause too, so he probably would want to go to a team like the Lions or the Commanders, like one of these very specific teams that are actually still contenders today. So I love that.
Yeah, I do think, okay, I will make it very clear that I think Tyreek Hill is a bitch, but I also want to say that winning solves a lot, so I don't think the antics would just carry over to Detroit. I know people are worried about that, but if he ended up in the right situation, if the team is winning, I'm sure that probably settles some nerves for a player like him. And at the same time, I might not have been a dick about it, but I swear it seemed like Mike McDaniel was doing anything in his power to give the ball to everyone but him this year. Like, it was very odd the way that team used their weapons. Like, all of a sudden Tyreek was on pace for 2,000 yards, and this year the guy was averaging like 2 catches a game.
I'll ask again, where did Waddle go? Where's Waddle? he just got paid crazy money, and now he's not being used either. It's Jonnu Smith and Devon Achane is like their leading receiver on the year. It feels like I don't understand. Malik Washington's now a thing. I don't understand. Like, I feel like they'd rather run out River Craycraft than fucking Jalen Waddle at this point. Like, it's absurd.
Raycraft. But yeah, I mean, it's true. Like, it really felt like they were making a focused effort to not get the ball to their two best players, which is very weird. Like,
send them to the Chiefs then. God damn it! Like,
yeah.
At this point, I want the Chiefs. I'm so tired of NFL fans just complaining all the time. I want the Chiefs to kill everybody from this point on.
Seriously.
I want them to become a dynasty. Like, just shove it in everyone's face. Just whining about them.
Have you been seeing some of the clips of people at Media Day? Because they just, I guess give out credentials to fucking anybody, apparently. Like, we should fucking go next year. Like, what the fuck?
Like, hey, like, do you love Taylor Swift or timely 15-yard pass interference penalties more? And then they're like, oh, he's so triggered because he said next question. Like, if I was there, I would just pull out a gun. like I wouldn't say next question. Like, I would just shoot you.
There's a joke going around my group chat right now. Whenever someone says something like awful or out of pocket or just anything that warrants this type of response, our joke right now is shoot that guy.
Literally, shoot that guy. Find him.
If I was there and I heard that reporter, I would turn, I'd point at him and say, shoot that guy. That is quite literally what I would have said word for word. And it's true. And I wouldn't have felt bad. Okay, I'll stop. But like,
you heard it here. You heard it here first, folks.
Fuck, man.
Check his really history.
That kind of opportunity, and you're not only wasting it, but you're making yourself out to look like such a fucking idiot. And you're putting your face out there. Like the one I saw, the guy like turned the camera to his face. It's like at least have the wherewithal to hide your damn identity from the internet before doing something. If
I have a couple K TikTok followers, do I just get to go all of a sudden to the freaking Super Bowl press week? Like, can I do that? like if he can do it, why can't I do it? That's stupid.
That's what I'm saying, but yeah, I don't disagree with that sentiment. And with that said, we might as well get into Super Bowl talk.
I was about to say, yeah.
So, I'm going to be up front. As much as I would not hate the idea of Kansas City shutting everyone up and kicking everyone's ass and just, proving everyone wrong that it's not a bunch of bullshit, I went all Eagles, like full Eagles. And a lot of it has to do with kind of the very incorrect and nonsensical mindset of like playing roulette and you see like red like 6 straight times and you're like, okay, it has to land black here. Like it has to be black, even though it's 50-50 every time or whatever the odds are the same.
Just like the way that you look at it, like the Chiefs are worse than last time. The Eagles are better than last time they played. Like it feels like math to me. Like it's just football math. Like one got better, one got worse. They're playing it. There was a close game last time. Like, why not?
Right. And that was...
But, like, yeah, I had written down, I was trying to figure out who to root for. I had everything listed down. Position, color, logo, helmet. And then I got to fans. And I was like, I don't care if I marked everything for the Eagles. I hate their fans.
Yeah.
More than anything in the world. They are terrible people, all of them. I hope I never meet one. And if I have met one and I'm friends with you, I don't want to be friends with you anymore. So I will never in good faith ever root for the Philadelphia Eagles to ever have a smile on their face again. I want it to be hell from here on out. Forever.
That's fair. I think that the Eagles, this iteration of the Eagles, they're the first team that we've ever known the name of their security guy from. Like,
yeah, like it's
the fact that was a thing was so obnoxious. I can't stand that. I can't stand Nick Sirianni. I can't stand their fans. Like, I like they have the only thing that stops me from letting that influence how I feel is that they have some of the best characters on their team. Like,
I love their roster.
Yeah,
I love like their front seven, their offensive line. I love that their offensive line made a Christmas album. Like, there's so many cool things that like about this team that is ruined by everyone that runs the team and roots for the team.
Mm-hmm.
So tough scene, but I'll probably root for the Chiefs. I don't know. I might just place a bet on Philly just so I have to root for them.
Yeah,
literally, that might be what has to happen here. So, speaking of, do you have any bold predictions for this game?
Well, the way I approach this game, I was breaking it down from an Eagles perspective and what I think they would need to do to win. And both sides of the ball, I looked at it offensively first, and I told myself they're, of course, going to lean into what they've been doing all year, giving the ball to Saquon, Jalen Hurts, potentially on a few design carries, especially since they saw Josh find some success with it last week or 2 weeks ago. So they'll definitely lean into that, and they'd be stupid not to. But the key offensively to their success will be how Jalen Hurts responds to Spags on third down, on fourth down, when the Heat, when he's sending all of the screamers at Hurts from who knows where. It'll be all about their preparation going into the week and the response that Hurts has or Kellen Moore has on those big third and fourth downs. And that's where I'm going to say it will be one of my hot takes, is where Jalen Hurts answers the call. It's been one of his weak points throughout the last couple seasons. He's gotten better about it this year. But I'm going to say that the Eagles convert 60+% of their third and fourth downs, and Jalen Hurts completes 70% of his passes on third and fourth down, which I think is going to be, those are big margins, big numbers, but I think that's what they're going to need to do to win. I have the winning, so I have that as part of my bold prediction.
I like that a lot. I like that. It's pretty similar to kind of what I had. So I'll try and change it up a little bit, because I just kind of had Jalen Hurts has his most impressive game of the season. So I'm going to kind of switch it to A.J. Brown. I think he's the one that receives it. Like, I think when he has to step up and make a play, I think it'll be A.J. Brown that is going to be the one winning vertically. I think that there's going to be a lot of cover one happening in this game. I think that they're going to rotate down. Emphasis will be on Saquon. It has to be. You will lose if it's not. And it's going to have to come down to Pro Bowler on Pro Bowler, McDuffie on A.J. Brown. And I think A.J. Brown's going to get the best of him majority of the game. But I also did have Hurts will mess up at one point. And McDuffie has 2 career interceptions. I think he gets his third. I think they test him, and he gets a pick, which he never does. He had his first pick this season. I think he gets another pick, but I think A.J. Brown wins the battle.
I like that. I mean, last time they played, I can't recall if it was necessarily Jalen's fault, but there was a fumble 6 in that game, was there not? I think there was a snap. The last Super Bowl. I think there was.
Didn't Nick Bolton get it? Yeah.
Took it all the way. I think it was at like the 50-yard line too. Like, it was not a short distance. So something went horribly wrong. Yeah, and it was a big deal. So there was a big mistake that happened in that game that turned the tides. And to that whole point of Pro Bowler on Pro Bowler, I think this is also where my Eagles, or where I lean into Philadelphia, is they are by far not just the best team in this game, but the most talented team on paper in football. And
front to back, 100%.
Kansas City very rarely this year has been definitively the worst team, the worst team in the game. They are outclassed in almost every single phase of the sport in this game, outside of quarterback and coaching. Yeah, that's really it. I would say at this stage, Dallas Goedert is stylistically, physically, maybe not as good as Kelce, but I don't think there's too big of a discrepancy between the two to say Kelce is offering that much more of an advantage against Goddard. So,
yeah.
Otherwise, like, Jalen Carter has been playing phenomenal football down the stretch.
Oh, my God.
So it's not like Chris Jones has this massive advantage over the Eagles' interior defensive line. Like, the Eagles are just so much better everywhere. And I think it kind of catches up with Kansas City, because they also haven't played any team this year that I feel like was definitely better than them on paper. Like, I was going through their schedule, and the only team they faced that I felt like you could argue their team was better was Baltimore in week 1. Otherwise, it was a bunch of, overperforming rosters, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that they are going to, if they're going to win, it's going to be how they've won the last few, which is just coaching. They're going to out coach Sirianni.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to come down to, and they will, Andy Reid will not get outclassed. So it'll come down to, is Philly's roster that much better to overcome what I think that Andy Reid will do to Sirianni? And I think they can. I think they probably will. I think that you can style up all you want. You have to stop the best running back in the NFL. You have to get past the best offensive line in the NFL. You have to run past the best front seven in the NFL. And you have to throw on one of the best secondaries in the NFL. Like, the only thing that can lose them this game is Jalen Hurts. He's the only one that can lose it for them. I don't think he will. As I said, like in my prediction, I think he steps up. But, man, it doesn't look good on paper, which is also why I said the leading rusher for the Chiefs will be Patrick Mahomes in this game. Yeah. I don't think Kareem Hunt will move. I think Pacheco is still battered. I think his knee is pudding. And they're going to need Mahomes to play out of structure. And he's been trying very hard to play in structure the last year, which is why stats have been down. Like, they need him to be a baller again. And this is the time to see it.
Yeah, that was also my other big talking point when breaking this down, was defensively the key to success for Philadelphia in this game will be similar to what it was the first time around, where the big story was, that Eagles pass rush and how ferocious it is against Patrick Mahomes in that offense. Like, how will that matchup end up going? And we all saw that the Eagles pass rush was like invisible, and you can blame the field all you want. They were a non-factor in the game. And had they played like they've been all season, it might have gone differently. But nonetheless, it's a similar story here, but I don't think it's going to be about as much rushing Patrick Mahomes and getting to him. It's going to be about containing Mahomes and keeping him in the pocket, forcing him to make plays under pressure in a condensed environment that I think Jalen Carter could help create, that I think Nolan Smith can help create on the outside. And just forcing him in very uncomfortable situations from within a tight space. If you lack gap integrity, you let him get outside the pocket and you break contain, that's where your coverage will have issues. If Mahomes isn't able to get those opportunities, then I think they will have a lot of coverage pressures. Philadelphia will. I think they'll have even a few coverage sacks, because there's nobody on Kansas City going into that secondary that I think is going to win consistently. It'll just be Mahomes doing something behind the line of scrimmage to get someone open. But if Philadelphia's defensive line can limit that, I think that coverage unit is going to force a lot of sacks or a lot of pressures.
Yeah. I think that we are going to know who wins this game in the first quarter. It's going to feel that way. Like, if the Eagles are going to have their way, run the ball early, if Jalen Hurts looks sharp, he is sharp, and we'll know immediately. We'll know if he's not. We'll know if they can't move the ball, they're screwed. If they can't run the ball, they're screwed. And I think we're going to find out really, really quick which version of Mahomes we're seeing. If he unlocked it again and becomes Super Bowl Mahomes again, I think they will win. But he hasn't looked himself. The offense hasn't meshed like how we thought it would. I don't know what Matt Nagy's doing over there, but it's been bad. I think it's been all Andy Reid's play calling that's kind of saved them. So I don't know if I was a betting man who I would bet on to win this game. I'm torn. I actually, like, this is the one time I can't predict who's going to win, but for the sake of rooting for the Chiefs, I'm going to root for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I get it. I have a track record of going against the team that the narrative will always support. So, like, for example, I was typically picking against the Patriots or Tom Brady. Like, why? I don't know. I'm just dumb. And then like when Mahomes and the Chiefs played the Bucs in the Super Bowl, it's like I thought the Chiefs would win. But of course, no, Tom Brady won. Of course Tom Brady won. And now it's the other way around, where now Mahomes is like that Tom Brady, or filling that
Don't bet
role.
against him.
So and here I am. I chose the Eagles last time they played. I'm picking the Eagles now. I really think, as dumb as it might sound, it has to go another direction at some point. And even though Brady won as many as he did, it didn't always fall in his favor. And I think this will be one of those Super Bowls that Mahomes looks back at, just like he does with Tampa, and be like, damn, that one got away from us. And he'll be back and he'll win more. But just like Tom, he can't win them all. So it's just the team is just not good enough to compete with Philly. And as long as Hurts does his job, that'll be it. And the last thing I want to tack on to my last specific prediction is I think Nolan Smith ends up leading the game in pressures and maybe even sacks. Like, I think Mahomes is going to be trying to get out of the pocket, trying to escape out the back door. And Nolan Smith is one of the few most athletic edge rushers. The dude's a freak, like fast as shit. He's quick. He's not going to get fooled by this fake hezzy bullshit that Mahomes will try to pull, or these pump fakes. Like, he's not. He's gonna hawk his ass down. So yeah, I think Nolan Smith is gonna have a big impact in this game, and I'm rooting for the Eagles.
Well, we shall see. I guess we have one more football game left until it's purgatory time, until it's off season. That's where the grind starts for me.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited.
I'm not, but I am. I'm gonna be sad. I'm gonna have to watch basketball. But
you can watch Jimmy Butler on the Warriors now.
I can watch De'Aaron Fox, who left by Kings, on the Spurs, tossing up lobs to Wemby. I get to watch Zach LaVine now. He's playing in half an hour. I'm gonna watch that game.
Nice. Yeah.
There we go. Ugh, brutal.
Yeah. I think I do look forward to the offseason. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like, last Sunday, I was like kind of productive, and like I was like, I'm kind of enjoying like not having to sit down and watch the game. Like, I love football just as much as anybody, but
I'm gonna go clean my car.
Like I actually feel like I have a full weekend now. Like,
I'm reading a book. Get crazy. Seriously, make a recipe.
All right. Well, that will wrap it up for episode, I think it's 9. I still don't know.
Let's go with 9. You know what? We're going to guess.
Yeah, we'll guess. But if you guys enjoyed, as always, please like, subscribe, follow, share. We appreciate anybody that tunes in, anybody that likes, comments, follows, shares. And you can find all of the socials for the podcast down in the description. You can find the socials for both of us individually down in the description as well. And we look forward to talking to you once the big game is said and done.
You're off to the off season.
And then off to the off season. We'll see you guys in the next one.
All righty. We'll see you.
Do the thing.